Oh, yeah, I prayed once and nothing really happened, so I don't really pray anymore. Is that you? Is that maybe a thought that you've had? Let's talk about it today. This week, as we're following along with the devotional plan, we find ourselves in 1 Kings chapter 17, and we're introduced to a man named Elijah. Elijah the Tishbite. And we know this Elijah, right? We have heard these stories. This guy who calls fire down. I think we'll eventually get there this week within the chapters of 1 Kings. But I was intrigued this week in chapter 17 as God tells Elijah to go to this place, and there's going to be this woman there who's going to provide for you. And so Elijah goes, and this woman is there. God's timing and the way that God put this all together is just absolutely incredible, right? So he has this woman give him some bread, and there's this miraculous working that God is doing through this whole event. And then just a little bit into the story in verse 17, it says, after this, the son of the woman, the mistress of the house, became ill. And so after this woman steps out and provides for Elijah during this season of drought, now her son gets sick, right? And so think about how you would be thinking if you were in this position of the woman. It says, and this young boy's illness was so severe that there was no breath left in him. That's another way of saying he did. Verse 18, and she said to Elijah, what do you have against me, O man of God? You have come to bring my sin to remembrance and to cause death to my son, right? She's freaking out because this man of God just showed up and I stepped out and I provided for him, and now my son's dead. What did I do wrong? And now is it because like this man of God, Elijah, has come and he's calling forth my sin, and now this is my judgment, killing my son? This is probably what's kind of going on in her mind. In verse 19 it says, and he said to her, give me your son. And he took him from her arms and carried him up into the upper chamber where he was lodged, and laid him in his own bed. He cried to the Lord, O Lord my God, have you brought calamity even upon the widow with whom I sojourn by killing her son? Is it because of me? Is this happening because I'm here? Verse 21, then he stretched himself upon the child 3 times, and he cried to the Lord, O Lord my God, let this child's life come into him again. And the Lord listened to the voice of Elijah, right? God hears our prayers. This is a miraculous story of God bringing someone who was dead back to life. That's incredible. And remember this, that the same God who did that then is the same God who's able to do it today, right? We just got to pray. Hey, that rhymed. But what I want to call our attention to is Elijah stretched himself over the child and prayed 3 times. So often we find ourselves in a place of calling out to God, crying once, crying out to him once, praying once, asking him once, and that's it. But there are some aspects of life that we're invited into a pressing in. We're invited into a continual crying out to God. It provides for us a season of drawing near continually, talking to God continually. Just think about the ways that this would draw us in. God, I need you over and over and over again. And listen, God does hear your prayers. And the encouragement today is maybe you prayed for something once and that was it. I want to encourage you. Let's press into continual prayer. Let's continue. Maybe it will take 3 times. We're talking about Elijah, the same Elijah who calls fire down from heaven, the same Elijah who was taken up in a whirlwind with chariots of fire. And he had to pray 3 times. Let's continue to press in fervent prayer until we see God move.